And you're like, what is imposter syndrome? And should I have that? And you write it down and you start Googling it, right? That's why we don't want to focus too much on it. Because it is something that's very natural, and it is something that emerges, and it is something that is extremely common that other people are feeling, and there are ways to combat it, right? But if you also don't have imposter syndrome, that's okay too. We're here for all of it. Next slide, please. Sweet, okay. All right, let's keep going, yeah. All right, academic expectations. So the expectation to stay updated on the latest literature in your discipline can be implicit. And maybe they don't tell you that, right? I remember once I had a colleague tell me, well, I'm not so sure if this graduate student is really prepared to be here because they're not reading extra articles and bringing them into my office hours every week and telling me about the things that are exciting to them. And I said, well, have you told them that you would like them to do that? Because maybe they don't know that they're supposed to be bringing in the stuff that they're reading that's relevant to their research and sharing that with you unless you tell them that, right? This is where the communication expectations and the work expectations, setting that out in the beginning is really useful. That is going to help you better understand what those expectations are for your field of study, and they are different. If you are in an applied discipline, those expectations are very different than a highly theoretically rigorous discipline, right? The expectation to understand your discipline, to understand your approach, to understand your methodology, all of that stays the same. But the expectations for what you're supposed to be reading and when to bolster your knowledge change. And so checking in with your advisor, that is a very important part of the conversation. Understanding the culture of your department and your field is also really important. Right? What is valued? In some disciplines, individual authorship is the most valuable thing. So if you are in many disciplines in humanities, or even like in an MFA, for example. Do we have any MFAs in here? I can't remember, I don't think so. Yeah. Individual authorship or individual sort of recognition as the singular producer of that piece of knowledge or that piece of creative activity, right? That is what is valued in that discipline, and that is what's going to help you succeed, get you across that finish line and get you a job. In other disciplines, like chem and biochem, for instance, right? In other disciplines, it is collaborative. It's almost unheard of to have a publication that is single authored. So know those things going in, figure those things out, pay attention to what you're reading. Pay attention, look at the articles that your advisor's giving you, and pay attention to how they're structured and what that looks like. I will also say that it's important to remember that you have kind of two dual identities. And these dual, it's like a multiverse situation, right? So these dual identities are happening at the same time. One is what we refer to as your institutional identity. So what you're doing here at UNLV as a graduate student, what opportunities you're availing yourselves to, your research that you're conducting in your home unit with your advisor, right? That is your institutional identity. But you also have a disciplinary identity that you're building, which is the networking part and the publishing part and the presenting at conferences part, right? And it's usually the faculty and the senior students in your program who are introducing you to those folks in your discipline. So as you are building a very robust institutional identity, you should also be thinking about ways that you can build your disciplinary identity in collaboration with and with the advice from your advisors. So understanding the culture is really important, and we talked about that. Okay. Funding and financial management, we've already talked a bit about this. Understanding how to secure funding, whether that be through grants, fellowships, or graduate assistantships is critical. Managing a budget is really a reality for most graduate students. So please look online, look at the Graduate College website. We have a whole page dedicated to funding current students with opportunities that are, a lot of opportunities are available actually. So in addition to seeking central support from the Graduate College, be also talking to your professors about how you can get research support, whether it be through grant writing or through internal funding from the department. Be thinking about kind of how you're going to financially set yourself up for success as you work on this stream. And the job market starts early. I know that sounds absurd because this is day one of the week before classes start, but you all came here for a reason, right? You're all, I'm assuming, I shouldn't make assumptions. I am assuming that everyone decided to start a graduate degree because they wanted that degree as a stepping stone to something else, right? Knowing what it is a stepping stone to, what you are hoping this degree does for you, what doors you are hoping it opens as you are starting in your program is really important. Whether that be, as I said, the worthy option of staying within the academy or the equally worthy options of leaving the academy. Whether that is internships or teaching experience, a certain set number of publications in a certain journal, industry collaborations, all of these may be critical for your future job prospects. So understanding what you want to do with your degree right now is going to help you be successful on the other side. Building a professional online presence is important. I think we're going to have a presentation on that by Diane. Yes. Okay, so I'm not saying a word about that because the master is going to deliver that master class. All right, next. Self-advocacy is a big one, right? There may be situations, in fact, I can almost guarantee that there will be at least one situation throughout your graduate career where you are going to need to advocate for yourself. It can be hard advocating for yourself if you've never been trained to do that. It may be in terms of negotiating deadlines with your advisor. It may be requesting resources or assistance. It may be that you're not receiving adequate support and you need help. It may be clarifying your role on a project, right? Whatever it is, it's important to ask for clarification. It's important to try those open lines of communication with your advisor first. And if that fails, knowing where to go next. Your graduate coordinator is a great next step. Every department has a graduate coordinator. They are a faculty member whose job it is to be a liaison to the graduate college. That is their job. Their job is to liaise with the graduate college on your behalf. Starting next with your graduate coordinator is a great way to start. If that doesn't work, you have your departmental chair. If that doesn't work, your departmental chair will give you additional resources. If none of that works, you come to the graduate college. And if you can't remember anything I just said, you come to the graduate college and we'll remind you. We will remind you and we will help you get access to those resources to start that self-advocacy. It often requires a very high degree of self-motivation in graduate school, which is very, very different from an undergrad program, right? It's very, very different from a bachelor's degree. Having to self-motivate is sort of, it can be a big deal. It can be really overwhelming. Again, just remember, you started this program for a reason. You started this program because you're building something. And so remembering that, I think, can really help with the self-motivation. And understanding how much self-motivation you need and how much your advisor is going to sort of swan in and tell you what they need, that's important because that's going to be different with every relationship. Every single one of you is going to have a different sort of mosaic of what that looks like with your advisor and in your program. So just being aware that usually a pretty strong degree of self-motivation is part of the kind of ingredients to success in graduate school. Next slide. Persistence, right? If you read a lot of the higher ed literature, you will read a lot about persistence. Persistence in graduate school, particularly in sort of STEM and what I refer to as STEM adjacent fields, is often influenced by a combination of factors, right? Believe it or not, we've talked about a lot of them already in those other bullet points. And it's really crucial, right? Persistence is not a small thing, and there is no secret sauce. I wish there were. We'd bake up batches, right? There is no secret sauce. What is important is for you to stay focused on what brought you here. During the times of challenge, to remember why you started your program. To remember that you are resilient and you are strong and that almost all problems you can overcome. And ultimately achieve your success in completing your degree. Next slide. There have been a lot of studies in higher education over the last 2 decades that have really sort of, I would say, focused on what kind of the research is indicating that there are certain elements of persistence, right? You can kind of boil it down to, there's probably many more things than these 10, but these 10 are a pretty good place to start. So take a minute and I'll just read them out loud and be thinking about them. Academic preparation and fit, mentorship and advising, research opportunities, social support and community, financial stability, work-life harmony, culture and institutional climate, intrinsic motivation and resilience, career outlook, and finally, the most important one, passion and enthusiasm. I hope that you all love what you do, and that that is part of what brought you into graduate school, is that you had a passion that was sort of burning you up inside, right? My advisor in undergrad asked me, and I'll never forget this, when I said, I think I want to go to graduate school, but I'm not sure. Nobody in my family has ever gone to graduate school. I don't really know. But I'm so interested in these questions, and they kind of keep me up at night. And she looked at me and she said, do you have a fire in the belly? And I thought, well, that's a weird question. Let me check in with myself. And then I looked back at her and I said, yeah, I do. I do, actually. I do have a fire in the belly. And she goes, great, then graduate school's for you. So I think everyone in this room has a fire in the belly, right? Now you just need to figure out how to harness it. And that's what we're going to help you do this week.